Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at USAGlobalTV.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Coexistence and Sustainability. We have a very, very special, important topic today: when to say goodbye to your beloved pet. This is a tough one. And I'm so grateful that my friend and our expert in-house, the star of our show, pet psychic AMINAH, is here joining us today. Let's welcome her.
Yay!
Hello. Happy Friday.
You too. Best day of the week ever, because we get to do this and help so many people. I can't tell you how nice it is to run into people and say, wait a minute, I saw your show and it was so helpful. And I was like, yay, because we love getting them. You know, please keep the messages coming. I'll keep sharing them with Dr. JACALYN and vice versa. You have so many great channels.
Oh,
I really encourage people. What I do is listen while I'm cooking and listen in the car and, you know, all of the places, because you've got a platform that's really easily accessible. And I've always wanted to tell you this, so it must be the moment to say thank you for just putting it out on YouTube. It's so simple. It's so easy. We don't have to have what is it? A prescription or subscription, all of those. And we just, you know, and log on for whatever time you can. It saves it where you left off and you get right back on. So thanks.
Thank you. And thanks for being with me since the very beginning.
Absolutely.
It's been quite a journey, and we keep having evolutions and iterations. Yep. But one thing doesn't change is that you are an expert who has a huge heart, and you're all about coexistence and sustainability. And I know you've had many occupations in your life where you were able to touch the animals and you were able to just hear what they have to say. And when it's time to say goodbye to a pet, that's really a tough one. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your background. You are a pet psychic, but you're also an expert trainer. You're an expert public speaker, and you've helped so many people. Where would you like to start?
I was born, no, we're not going to go there. I'm very, very fortunate to have I'm the fifth child of my parents, and my mom was really great at seeing what her children were interested in and made sure we had those experiences. So for me, I was the one always picking up. I grew up in the desert, and there's lots of lizards and things like that, and tumbleweeds. They really are, lots of them. And I would pick up all kinds of bugs and things, and I always wanted to be outside, and it was, she really saw that. So by the time I was 11, I had already worked with a gentleman who was working with wildlife, and I was learning to handle and pictures. I have a picture taken of me for a very, very, it wasn't National Geographic, but it was like Sunset Magazine, and they came out to do a spread on a park my mom had restored, and there were also the wildlife animals, and I'm pictured in that. I was 11 at the time, holding a very, very large iguana and a snake, and I loved it. So it was time to add a college education and to have these animals. It's just for me, I see the details. And animals are all about a flick of the ear, the flick of the tail, stomping their feet, their claws. It's an entire conversation. If you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what they're saying. And that's what I do now, is try to help everybody understand the foreign language that your pets are talking and or doing, and how to teach you to teach your animal to communicate better with you. That's how we do, that's how we coexist.
And it's so basic in that even as human beings, if we learn to listen to each other, but if we can't listen to humans one to one, are we able to listen to our animals? I mean, we have to free up that part of our mind that is so judgmental and closed off.
Well, and luckily, luckily, I'd like to say I have experienced it enough to say, okay, I'm just thinking, is this fair? Yeah, it is fair that so many times we are better with our pets because they don't judge us and they don't tell us we have bad haircut days and we didn't get dressed and wash our face and we're still in our jammies 3 days later or something, and we're not sick. Animals don't judge us. And I think that's the saving grace for those of us who are absolutely passionate about coexisting, meaning they're our buddies, they're our children, they're our comfort. When we have a bad day, who do we come home and hug first? The dog, the cat. If you have a snake, you can do that too. I mean, might curl around your neck, and you're warm, so they might really give you a big old hug. But we seem to give more grace to those that don't communicate quite in English or Spanish or French or whatever you speak as far as a language to another human. And I hope we can push that a little bit out and use that kind of compassion with each other.
So well said. I love it. Thank you. So we have a pet. We love the pets, part of our family. And all of a sudden, the pet's just not the same. Something's happening. And sometimes we ignore it. Sometimes we rush the pet to the vet right away. And as the pet's getting older, and some breeds, they are known to have some issues, right? Which is the breed with the hip dysplasia?
Yeah, German Shepherds, the big dogs. Shepherds specifically, first of all, I rescued one out of a backyard, and so having had one and he dying, at an appropriate age, he ended up being a service dog. I had him trained to be that, not for any of my family members or myself, but in that arena. What they did, what people are doing, humans, they're they're making designer dogs. So they need them to be allergy free. That's a really big thing. There's so many people that love animals but are horribly allergic to all the dander and that type of stuff. Poodles are really great about the way they are. They have some of the least allergy issues, and it's just the way the poodles put together, and then the designer breeding has gone. German Shepherds have a double coat, so you got to do a lot more brushing, blah, 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 blah. Depending on the breed, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. If you've got a Chihuahua or a Pekingese or something that's below your knee, you need to make sure they're indoors full time or they're with you full time, because these are little lap dogs. Know what you're getting and know what you're rescuing, which is what I hope everybody does, because our shelters are full of purebreds. That's where I got our Shepherd. Is somebody said, there's a German Shepherd over at this clinic, or they were going to take them there and dump them off. It's been so long, I don't remember. We have had so many pets, which one, but we named him Jake, and he was the one who was dropped in a backyard of the house we bought. So animals have sentient feelings. Is it the same as us? No. So let's say you meet somebody from a foreign country from where you live. They eat differently. They say hello differently. They walk differently, whatever, or they enjoy completely different hobbies than you do. Is that wrong? No. Your pet should have the same courtesy. I truly believe it. I walk this path just because I want to cuddle with my cat. Does my cat want to cuddle? Not necessarily. And the cats will really tell you. But with the cats I have now, we have 3 rescues living with us, and we love them dearly. And they all came from different circumstances. And they're all are totally different personalities. And one is like, yeah, you get 6 seconds to hug me, and then we're done. And we came to that agreement. But that's not the case on all of them. Some of them will curl up with us for hours. Go in finding out the joy. I want you to find joy in finding out who is your pet. What do they like? Now, if they're crazy about peanut butter, or if they're crazy about cookies and cream or whatever, this is not, it's just like a human child. You wouldn't give them a cupcake like 6 times a day, and maybe that's instead of food because of the sugar rush. Healthy food keeps healthy bodies. And knowing that my family tends to take on the sick or old or quirky and not finding a home type pets, because we have the skills to do so. And we have the patience to do so. Sometimes a pet will surprise you, and they'll go, oh, they're so cute, because what's they're like when you meet them, maybe in the shelter or with the breeder or whatever, it's a different venue. And then they come into your house and go, what the heck am I doing here? And when do I get to leave? Give yourself some time. Find a good trainer, especially if you're dealing with dogs and canines, and read up on everything you can. This day and age, here we are. YouTube galore. There's so many people giving free advice. Is that right for you? Not everybody is. So look for somebody that either has your same type of way to look at things, and or you understand their verbiage, or you just think they're hilarious and you're having a great time learning with them. Have a good time with your pets. Their lives are finite, so are ours. And who wouldn't want to just have a nice fuzzy cuddle buddy up for TV day?
I love that. And we spend so much time with our pets. They're part of our family. And then when they get sick, we feel helpless sometimes because we're dependent upon our veterinarian, or maybe we're trying some holistic approach, or I don't know what's going on here. But we are needing to look deep inside of ourselves, and maybe it's spirituality or it's prayer, whatever it is, that we can send energy to our pet. But when all else fails, okay, it's not working and the pet's suffering, okay, you can see your pet suffering. Some people will just let it continue on for some period of time, and there's no judgment. I don't have the answer. I don't know what's right or wrong.
Right.
But what are your thoughts as someone who coaches others when it's time to let go? How do you know?
Well, I want to honestly say, which I'm always going to be, is until we die and we can go up and talk to God and say, so how was that? That was okay. I honestly think we that really have the compassion to say, is this something I should be doing? Every time, and I don't even know, maybe 3 times I've had a pet that I had to make this decision. It sounds way too many to me, just saying 3, and yet we've had many animals. But when quality of life has ended, whatever that means, and there's no way to recoup that, and the vets are telling you, this is something you should consider, I would highly recommend, don't go with somebody who's absolutely only pro one side or the other. Get a second opinion. That would be what I would do if I was torn between, well, is this what the person who's giving me the advice, vet, neighbor who has a trainer, whatever they feel they have knowledge to help you with, and say, oh, well, I've been here and this is what happened. So take it slow if you can, and slow might be 3 days, might be 24 hours, because you need to make a decision for their sake, depending on the injury, but also depending on the animal and their personality. I watched a documentary, it probably was a couple weeks ago, and this dog was, imagine a golden retriever, but very, very short hair. And Dr. Jacalyn, it was just amazing. This dog had no front feet, no front two legs. Guess how he got around?
A
He
little.
hopped around like a kangaroo.
Oh my gosh! I thought you were going to say I've seen like on the little scooter kind
Yep.
of thing.
Nobody had one of those, the little boards with the
Yes.
wheels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, nowadays we have all this equipment that we can strap on legs, which are
Right.
wheels. And no, they didn't have this. I don't remember if it was in Australia that the dog was or something, but it got an infection, and so the legs were amputated. Or I'm not sure if I'm getting two different dogs, but one other dog that I saw do this got an infection in his bones, and so they took the front legs off because they were rotting anyway.
Mm.
So if you ever get a chance to just Google this, and anybody watching, it is the most uplifting and hilarious if you really like a comedy, because the dog is literally hopping on his back legs like a kangaroo, and he's very trim. He's very, luckily, because that's easier for him to get around.
Sure.
But he's putting a great deal of extra energy and wear and tear is the better word, on his hips. So they have beds and pillows, and they have a little strap that goes around their belly so they can hold him and help him walk. But he has the most fun chasing the balls, and you can't run with him and hold him. And so he just hops all over the place. But he's been infamously famous in the animal world, and he's got videos, I'm sure, on YouTube or something. And you'll get to see this when you really have an animal that you're going to stick with, and you're going to get the wheelchair, or you're going to make the accommodations. And like this dog, they would have a strap on their chest and help him hop around. So it was just wonderful, because you could see this dog pretty much was smiling and laughing the whole time. Was his life going to be shorter? Absolutely. The wear and tear on his spine, all that jumping, all the parts that he was just anything just to move. He couldn't crawl because he didn't have any front legs, but they wanted to give him the best life they could for as long as they could. And that's really where it was. When you can let go, and this is really hard. I'm not making it up that everybody is just going to let go. When you can come to some peace of mind of saying, I need to do what's best for as many of us as possible. Let's say you have children that are invested in this animal and lifetime, and it's a great time to talk about life and death. People are sometimes really terrified about talking about end of life. As somebody who talks to dead people since I was young, I have a little bit wider vision of it, because I've talked to so many people who have, and animals who have passed. And it is really true. There's no doctor's appointments. There's no, everybody's retired, vets and doctors and MDs and everybody. And there's no hunger, and there's no class, this one gets fancy cars, this one doesn't. No, all that's gone. All that's gone. And it's just wonderful, because for me, just because I'm so used to talking about and working with people who have died and animals who have died, is I love that I actually get to hold the owl for the first time legally. Now, I worked in a wildlife sanctuary, so I have pictures of me holding these animals for educational things. But these animals were injured and or shot and couldn't be put back in the wild, and so they were in a rescue center, and that's where I was working. So can you imagine animals all healthy, you're healthy, I'm healthy, no pills, no No naps for 6 hours. We don't have to get, cut our nails, shave our legs, nothing. All of this just goes away. Doesn't that sound like paradise?
Wow, like a huge weight just got lifted.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because you don't have to go to work because there's no bills.
Right.
There's no light bill that has to be paid because I'd like to see it while I cook dinner, or the stove turns on, or we got to go to Costco, or we got, whatever the stresses are in our day-to-day life. And for me, I look forward to talking to my dad again, face to face. And I'm very fortunate. I can speak to my dad anytime I want because I can hear him and all that type of stuff. But can you imagine those people who are missing those loved ones? And the same thing with your mom and your pets. And I know you love your puppies. We love talking about your puppies. And all of that is, there's no pain. There's no next doctor's appointment. It's just cuddle time.
It is. Now I have a question for you though. My question is, and I've heard this from both sides. So people have a pet, big part of the family. The pet dies. Sometimes it's a horrible death. It's cancer, whatever it is.
Right.
And they immediately must get another pet, or they will never have another pet again. They're both extremes, but how would you guide someone?
I would ask them to wait. I would ask them to wait because grieving is a necessity, not I'll get to that one later. No, when you don't get to that, I have, again, a lot of experience with death and didn't know this, but when my best friend's parents were killed, and my best friend's father was a Air Force pilot, and they died in a plane crash where he was flying the plane because the engine exploded. So if this man who spends his entire career in an airplane dies and not to hit anything he did, and in that moment, my best friend called me and said, my parents just died. I said, that's not funny. We were 11. And I'm like, that's not funny. That's funny. And I said, how would you possibly know if they're dead? How did somebody come to the house? And she said, no, we saw it on the 8 o'clock news. And that's where the laws changed. To this day, they cannot give out all that information anymore in the news because too many families were watching the news and found out. So her and her 2 sisters found out they were orphans in a field swoop because they knew what plane he was in. They knew where he was going, and the news gave all those details. They just didn't use their name. So live like tomorrow doesn't matter or doesn't come. You and I are doing this because we want to share our knowledge, and you have the organization and the wherewithal to bring in all these fabulous people for these shows and find all our specialities and our willingness to share it. So what I want to say is, with your pets, do the same. Show up every day. Are you going to have bad days? You're going to have days you don't feel like going for a walk? Absolutely. But let them be, the days are rare, as opposed to maybe you need a smaller pet. Small children need to be supervised with pets at all times because they haven't figured out that they can't poke the toe, or they can't poke their eye and see what happens, or pull their tail or whatever. One cat we adopted, their tail just drug along the ground because somebody at some point, I don't know who, pulled her tail and literally severed the nerves. So she couldn't wag her tail ever at all. So it just dragged on the time. And we never had it amputated because it didn't rot. She had enough blood to keep it viable with fur, but it couldn't move. So these are things you have to take into consideration on where you are with your pet transition or what you're doing.
Yeah, sorry, something just came to mind and it popped in my head. I wasn't doing elevated listening, but what I wanted to share was, I can't tell you how many times I'll see on social media someone will have, and I don't know if it's fake or it's real, but you'll see a giant dog and a baby, like a baby, all just, I don't even know how old the baby is, and the baby is, they're innocent, can't do anything, bundled up, and the dog is like, I don't know. I'm thinking, no, I don't know. No matter how much you trust your dog, there's nothing against the dog, but you don't know what the dog's capable of. Just one swipe with a paw could be over. But I see these kind of pictures all the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's great if you're doing you're going to the photographer and you set it up. I did that. I had the shepherds, we had two, and had them sit down and the little kids sitting around. But again, we were all supervised. What I don't want to give anybody carte blanche. I'm not trying to, but I'm trying to be very, very fair, because you're right. As far as all animals, if you have fish in a tank, you have a hamster, whatever, make sure your children always are supervised. And if they're in cages, like a terrarium or some cage like a bird, have it locked or something if your children are small enough or young enough or not mature enough to be left on their own, that they won't go and get that bird or go take a stick and poke at it and say, oh, I wanted to jump, I wanted to do this. Oh, don't even get me started on the people who think that that's the right way to do things. Well, I want them to chirp, or I want them to be quiet. Or, we adopted a sun conure, and it's a beautiful, beautiful bird, but oh my gosh, it is really loud. And we got Maggie to be quiet during, sleeping hours. But my neighbor, who we shared one wall in the condos, and she's like, I always know when you guys get up. I was like, what? I don't know why I want everybody to know when we get up. And she's like, because Maggie starts screaming at you guys as soon as you guys wake up. And I said, yes, she does. And you got to know, and a lot of times the same thing, just what I said with Maggie, our sun conure, little bitty bird, very cool. It was great with the kids. But I went back to work, and it wasn't fair to Maggie that we didn't have the time, and she wanted all of that, our time and all of that. And I was like, no, I wasn't going to get another one. So I rehomed her. And the family that I found, Dr. JACALYN, for a sun conure, they're super, super high pitched loud. And they're these little bitty birds. They're beautiful. Gold, green, the whole thing, little bitty birds, so many out there. Guess what kind of family we adopted her to?
I don't know.
Have you ever heard of sun conure?
I have. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they would be really popular, and they'd let them go free in your state. So you probably got them in trees and all that kind of stuff.
Probably right.
The woman that ended up adopting Maggie was deaf.
I was going to say that, but I didn't know. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, because we don't want to stereotype anybody, but
right.
She was perfect. She was patient. I was able to use sign language and gestures. And that point, I wasn't studying sign language. I later on did that. But she was gentle and kind. And Maggie jumped up on her shoulder, and I was like, okay, this is going to work. Because the girls couldn't sleep past the time I sat up. Maggie started screaming. She knew when I woke up. She knew when I was down. And she's like, no, God. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it got exhausting for my kids.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that. It brings something to mind, which I think is really important. Sometimes it's not a great fit between
right.
pet and pet owner, but you don't just leave it in the street. You don't just take it in your car and abandon it somewhere. Right?
Yeah. Not birds. People don't realize, and your state specifically, I mean, we've got people taking what is the fish that eat piranhas. People are dumping them in rivers and lakes, and they don't want them anymore. Then they're letting the iguanas go on, and they're letting the lizards go, and they're like, oh, they can do their own thing. No, they were hatched in a terrarium. They've been fed their whole life. But the worst part is the decimation of the native animals and the native food sources that would have gone to these animals. And Florida is a perfect example of alligators are running around. And people are like, oh, I don't want that. It's like, okay, then live somewhere else. Because they were there first. Or you've got wild dogs or you've got wild horses, and they're looking at you like, oh, cool, you leave the hay out, or I'm going to chew on your fence or whatever. Remember, this is what coexisting looks like. It means that I can respect you and where you need to be, and we can kind of get there 50-50. Not 60-40, meaning we get 60. Now, people, humanity today, I would say most of us are expecting 90-10, meaning we get 90% of all the resources, probably more, but I'm trying to be generous, and all the things we want. Well, it's our water, oh, it's our trees, or it's our ... We want to put a condo up. We want to put a manufacturing plant. We want to dump oil on the ground. And we wonder why the world is too hot and we don't get enough rain or whatever else that is attached with global warming. We got here for a reason. And animals and people must coexist. They must, because we're both on this planet and we can do it. But you have to realize that the animals matter. If you don't think the animals matter, then the conversation, it can't even begin.
Exactly. And you and I have talked about this before, but many times a new housing development goes up in an area where animals have been living for however long. And then it's not like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe wildlife, I forget what it's called. What is it? Something in wildlife?
I don't know.
I forget the name of the entity, the organization, but it's not like they go out and they physically collect all the animals and relocate them. So they're on their own. And where do they go?
Well, in the beginning, I'm sure you've seen this in housing tracts and all that kind of stuff. We've all heard about it or experienced it, or somebody's told us, is the animals either stay in the crevices in the trees and the bushes because most builders have so much greenery, or I know here in California, they have to put in a park for every so many houses that they build or condos or apartments they build. The city and the county are really cutting down on, no, we need more green space. We'll let you build, but you have to build this in order to build this. You have to build a park for this many people. And now we're going, okay, well, that's better than everybody decimating the entire landscape and going, okay, no, we're just going to put all the people there. And then you go, wait a minute. For example, I live on a giant hill. You really have to have a point to come up where we all our housings are. And there's only 2 roads up and down. That's it. That's all you got. So can you imagine if all of us wanted whatever, more real estate or more this or more that? How many animals did we just unhome? How many animals did we decide that, because at the bottom of our hill is a highway. So a lot of building went into not only the city deciding that they were going to probably put housing here, because the freeway was in there first. So they're now starting to take that into consideration. But look what had to happen. Global warming had to happen. Loss habitat, which means loss of food sources, because if our birds don't do what they need to do and the alligators don't do what they need to do, and on and on and on, name an animal, squirrels and beavers, all of these animals are making the world better. It might not be convenient for us because some beaver came and clogged up your water or your fishing pond or whatever, but believe it or not, they are helping the ecosystem. They are creating healthy soil, healthy plants, healthy ways of eating. Humanity has brought in the automobile. Let's just use that one example. And for a long time, fireplaces were huge. We had one. And not until I got older did I realize all that smoke coming out of our fireplace was part of the pollution. So a lot of houses are not doing that, or they're doing electric, and they're doing gas or some other type of not burning actual wood. So we're doing things. We just have to keep stepping in and keep stepping up. Recycle whatever you can. Try to buy things that you can recycle. For me, I love going and buying random weird things, like especially at the dollar store. And I'll give you an example. I don't have one near me, but when people knit, they have a place, the dollar store would have a little frame, and it's just plastic. And it looked like an H. And they would run the yarn around it while they were knitting. Well, I cleaned them out last year, about 20 of them. And what I did is I put them in my pots that are out front, because I constantly have squirrels looking for food. And this is a harmless way for them to go, ooh, that's not very comfortable, and I can't dig up the dirt and I can't bury anything. There are ways to do it without chemicals. There are ways to coexist. You just have to look outside of what's normally done. We don't need Roundup. We don't need to weed kill. Just pull the weed. Put good soil in, but guess what? The weed comes out even easier. There are simple things that you can do. A lot of us do. Pills and or vitamins or something that you take every day. Well, I have some that I take 2 or 3 times a day. I just spread it out. I happen to be anemic, so I've been taking iron for decades, but I spread it out. Well, I don't know you. I don't want to carry 3 little iron pills in my pocket, and I don't always have a pocket. So I got a little thing, and some people use it for their fishing hooks. Some use it for bead work. That was the most common I saw, in their little containers that are all hooked together. And guess what I did? I put my pills in there, and then I put it in my purse. And if I have them left, then I know I haven't taken all my pills. If I forget, because we all get busy, right? And then so I'm encouraging you, just because it's made for a certain thing doesn't mean it has to be used for it. You can use it for anything. And guess what? You put a little bead in there, you seal up the container, and it rolls around. The cats are having a great time. Absolutely great time. And again, I got it at the dollar store, and I got like 10 or 12 of them. So I could make them as tall as I want and put whatever I wanted in them. So there's some more fun tips, hopefully.
Repurposing makes a lot of sense. And also, when you have something that you're not going to use anymore, donate it, give it to somebody, give it another life.
Well, in the Goodwill, it's a perfect place, because they are raising funds to help the homeless in our area and other projects. And if your stuff, especially if it's in good shape, I don't know you, Dr. Jacalyn, but we all eventually go through some clothes and go, no. The bell bottoms. Yeah. We all owned at one point. You're like, now they'd be worth a fortune, but
right.
You had to wait 50 years to have that happen.
It's true. I know some people who they recycle among their community baby clothes. So nobody buys new baby clothes. They just, you can have it.
Because your baby's only in 6-month-old clothes for 3 weeks. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 10 days.
Right.
And luckily my girls, their dad's a twin, and he's like, I really want twins. I said, well, you should have married somebody else, because I don't have any twins in my family. So I had the girls close together. They're 18 months apart. So it was easy to do that. But after a while, you're like, okay, nobody can wear these. And it was wonderful to be in a group of moms and say, hey, I got girl clothes. Do you need girl clothes? Or I got pants that'll work for a boy. So
I got something for you. Yeah, I know. But it feels good. And it saves money. It's saving the environment. It's
well, and you didn't have to have a garage sale. Remember those days?
They don't work. And I did one of them. I would never do it again, because there's some people who are professionals. That's what they do. They go, that's a whole other story for a whole other show. But we've come to the end of our episode already about when to say goodbye to a beloved pet. Pet Psychic AMINAH, how can people get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you? bridgingworlds.us is basically my resume, how to make an appointment, what the costs are, all of those things, and any help I can be. As you can see, I'm very much not sticking to the same old script. So hopefully come up with something creative for your situation,
that works for who your family is and all of that. And the hardest decision is to say who lives and who dies. Get support. Make sure you check in with your vet or somebody else besides the neighbor so that you don't live in grief for too long, because we all have the right to grieve, and it's healthy when it has support. So get the support you need and make sure you know that our pets don't live forever. So love them every day you get a chance.
You can go over to bridgingworlds.us, and the information that we're talking about today is right here on the website.
Thank you.
So thank you. And thank you for being the human being that you are, all focused on humanity and coexistence. I truly love that about you. I will look forward to, thank you. I look forward to seeing you again for our next show next week.
Absolutely. And again, if anybody wants me to cover something specific, Dr. Jacalyn does a fabulous job. She's now all broken into the animal craziness of world I live in, but we also will cover things when you ask. So thank you so much.
We're here for you, everyone. Have a great weekend, and thank you so much. Please subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV on YouTube. Bye for now. Bye-bye.